Go live. Okay, perfect. Oops. Yes. Okay, Mr. Mayor, we are live on YouTube, and I'm just going to unmute myself here.
Thank you. So welcome everyone, and we're now in a fully virtual board meeting for the Saanich Police Department and Saanich Police Board. I'd like to welcome everyone here. Anita, could you reading our territorial recognition, please?
Mr. Mayor, that will actually be Joanne Coe reading it.
Joanne, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got the territorial acknowledgement in front of me, and I will do that now. It is appropriate that we begin by acknowledging that the District of Saanich lies within the territories of the Lekwungen peoples represented by the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, and thus with Sandwich peoples represented by Sarlip, Pakwachin, Sawout, and Sycam and Malahat nations.
Thank you. And for inclusion and diversity, I would like to recognize to the people who are listening and elsewhere that Saanich respects all diversity and embraces the need for full community engagement with all our residents from wherever they come and whoever they are. I'd like to go now to our agenda. In the public meeting, I need a motion from the board to approve the agenda. So we'll do it this way. I'll call out, let's have Mary do the move and Glenn do the second. So if you two could unmute, and Mary, could you take the lead in that, please?
Yes, I would like to move the agenda, please.
And I would second that.
Thank you. I'll call for a vote. If a member of council, a member of the board is not in favor, please speak up. Thank you. I'll take that as assent. The agenda is approved. Mary, could you read us in for the minutes from the February 2nd meeting?
Yes, I would move the adoption of the minutes of the February 2nd, 2021 Saanich Police Board meeting.
Thank you. Glenn, would you do the second?
Since I wasn't there, I don't know if I should be a seconder.
Okay, Glenn, that's a very good point. Linda, would you move the second?
Yes, I'll move the second of the minutes, please, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So members of the board, for approval, if you do not approve, please speak up. Hearing no negatives, the minutes of the February 2nd, 2021 meetings are approved. Next item is correspondence. I'm not seeing any noted on our agenda. Anita, was there any late correspondence we should be aware of?
No, Mr. Mayor, there was no correspondence submitted.
Thank you. Item number 4 is new business. I do have an item that's just broken since we published the agenda, and I'd just like to inform the board of some very good news, I believe. I've been approached 2 months ago by Claremont High School and the group there of the Institute of Global Studies. And what they are interested in doing, the youth in that school, is reaching out to all the schools in the district, and I believe there are 9 of them that they're in touch with, to create in each school a youth council, and they want to call this the Saanich Mayor's Youth Council, that they hope would be a legacy piece that would go from one election to another and provide the opportunity for the youth of district to inform the mayor on issues and as mayor, the chair of the police board, and also act as a sounding board for areas of our interest. I've had 2 meetings with them now. One was in a Zoom meeting with the whole class. The second was with a Zoom meeting, a face-to-face meeting, in the committee room here last week. And they've identified 4 areas of interest. One is financial management. One is some climate action. And the third one, which I'll mention, is the point of my item today, is working with the police and connecting the youth of the district in more fulsome ways with the Saanich Police. So I'd like to bring that to the board's attention and get your feedback on it, with an ask that we would then, provided we support this, there's an ask to Scott to be perhaps an initial advisor on this group to spend some time with the group in terms of how the youth of Saanich may positively be engaged with the Saanich Police Department. I'll say one more thing. I believe this is consistent with the motion we had a year ago to create a outreach program and work with several stakeholders. So I'm actually quite pleased with this and bring it to the board. I look forward to your input. I'll leave it to you now. Would anybody like to speak?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mary.
Okay, thanks very much. No, it sounds like a really interesting idea. Just a few questions. So is there going to be like one committee for all of Saanich, or will there be a committee in each school? And does it have the school's sanction or blessing, or how does it interact with the schools?
So they're very good questions. First of all, there would be a sort of a clearinghouse committee. There would be a couple of representatives, one representative from each of the school for a committee that may be 9, 10 to 11. Within each school, there would be a collective of some size that would have individuals from that school interested in the 4 areas. And I'll get my notebook and get the 4th area. The permission of the school is something that Mark Neufeld is working on, and nothing would happen without the engagement of the school. I noted that one of the things that came up is that the individual I was speaking to, they were lamenting that they didn't have police liaison officers. And I believe that was interesting to me. And we need to do a little bit of checking on which schools have liaison, because I think that would be a bridge part of this as well. But you're quite right. We do need to check in that it has the approval of the school, etc. in going forward. But in terms of the concept, is an area that I was looking for feedback, as well as any of these as additional granular details, and also to hear from the staff side on how they would see an interplay for their ongoing activities. Mary, you still have the floor?
No, that's fine. I would like to hear from the.
Yeah. Linda, Glenn, or Barwan, do you have any inputs, please?
I had a similar question with respect to the multiple number of schools and how they would liaise. And so I think Mary had asked that question. That's an interesting initiative.
Yes. Ironically, Barwan, on that point, I got the sense that 1 or 2 of the individuals were looking, they actually said they're looking at a career in policing at their age, at grade 9. So that was intriguing to me. Share that with you. I think one of their interests was to learn more about the police in terms of a possible career. Glenn or Linda, do you have any comment?
Glenn here. I like the initiative. What I'd like to understand is how this will compare to what we had when we had the police liaison happening a couple of years ago. And how similar it might be, or whether we can dovetail what it was then with what they're thinking of now.
Okay, so I'll come to Scott for that, but my first point of difference would be they actually want to work with the mayor and get feedback with the mayor's working group, whereas the school liaison, that was an operational piece that was pretty much at the departmental level. So this would be more of an interest in policy and politics and those things, and be sort of as I mentioned before, sort of a bridge between the two. Its full shape has yet to be scoped out, Glenn, and that would be part of some of the early conversations. And it might be something that runs for a couple of years. It might be something that lasts longer. But right now there is this interest, and I was quite heartened by it. I didn't suggest it came from the student leaders. Linda.
Yes, I think it's a great idea, and we mentioned the stakeholder committee that we have put in place but haven't really moved forward with yet. So I think it's a great initiative. They would be a good group for the stakeholder outreach committee for the board.
Thank you. So Scott, having heard some of this debate, would you like to weigh in from your perspective?
Yeah, I guess we would just want to know more about it. And just because of what you just finished saying, that we do have a school liaison program in our community engagement division that's specific to this. They're in pretty much all the schools. In fact, they've recently made inroads with the Native Friendship Center, and our school liaison officers are going to be engaging the center there. But this is sounding from your words a little bit more like an interaction with you wearing the mayor's hat with your responsibilities as mayor and council. So We would just want to see what we can do because, and where that overlap is, because we've got as you say, a whole section as part of a division that's dedicated to a school liaison.
Correct. So Scott, on that, that's excellent. So my concern there, Scott, is that I didn't want to get any further down this route without you being informed and making sure that we're all on the same page. And I think there's a role for us to play to get our initial ideas, including the scope of the engagements in place, and even to inform the students about the role of the liaison. So it's a kind of cohesive package. So maybe, Scott, that's something you and I can take on separate to the board, but I wanted the board to be aware of it. I'm not sure it needs a vote of the board. It could be just to receive for information as we take it forward. However, as Linda said, this would be one of the stakeholder groups that we could embed into that stakeholder work. So it does have a role to play on the board.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Gary?
Just a point of clarification. I thought I heard you say that whatever school this was you were describing didn't have a school liaison officer.
Yes, it was Claremont, so that puzzled me because I thought we did have one there, but that's what they said.
No, that just warrants a little further explanation as to why they may not have known who their school liaison officer is. So our school liaison section includes 1 sergeant and 4 constables, and every single school in Saanich has a school liaison officer assigned to them. We did go through a period of time a little over a year ago where staffing pressures meant that our school section wasn't fully staffed and we had to reallocate staff to patrol. That's no longer the case. The school section has been fully staffed for all of the current school year. And so Claremont will have a school liaison officer, and whoever you were speaking with at that time just may not have known who that was for whatever reason.
Okay, that's excellent feedback, Gary. And I think that's also part of the information that we can share with the students. And it may be a way of, through different routes in the school peer groups, encouraging interaction with the school liaison officers. I don't know, but Gary, that's very helpful. So at this point, I think, should we just receive for information? Mary?
Yes, I think that's appropriate. You just receive it for information and further review.
Yeah.
Could you just make that motion then, Linda?
And keep us
Yes.
informed.
Yes.
Because as I understand it, just to be clear, their interest is beyond policing. It's not just policing. It's all
Correct.
aspects of what you do as a mayor and
What we do as a mayor and how they can be engaged as young civic leaders, if you like.
Yeah.
The idea is maybe this is a way of building a cadre of young leaders for the future, whatever that may be in business, community, politics. And this is just one of 4 areas. Okay, so moved by Linda, second by Mary, vote to receive for information and then continue to be updated. Anybody who disagrees, please speak up. That item is done. Thank you very much, board, and thank you for the input, staff. Any divisional updates, Scott?
I'll just reach out to the inspectors to see if anyone has anything. Don't think they do, but does anyone have any comments for the public portion? I'm not hearing any. Mr. Mayor, we can proceed.
Very good. I just have a note for you that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. I've had some correspondence with the Livable Roads for Rural Saanich, and they, as we know, have some strong interest in traffic conditions on rural roads. And there was an initiative back in 2016 from my desk as a councillor to say maybe we need a joint meeting with Central Saanich and Saanich to look at some shared issues which may or may not include on a joint agenda the traffic issues. They have approached me recently to ask where that is. We've explained that given COVID and given other imperatives for our work and in talking to Central Saanich, we're not able to schedule that for the foreseeable future. I've suggested that they go direct to Central Saanich, which I gather they're going to do. They've also asked for who they will contact here about traffic issues. I've had quite a bit of correspondence with them, almost monthly, which I undertake with Harley. So just a heads up that there may be something that comes to the Saanich Police Department, sorry, Central Saanich Police Department, about how Central Saanich and Saanich could jointly work on rural traffic issues. I'm just sharing that with you for information, so that if you hear that in the future, you'll understand where it's come from. Scott, I'd like to then go to item 6, committee reports as needed. Finance, Glenn and Linda, anything to report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have reviewed the police board provisional budget. I call it a tie-in between what was originally provided to council and what is prepared for the meeting at council on Thursday, and I think it has been well done, and I would support it.
Thank you.
Could I just ask, Glenn,
Go ahead, Mary, yes.
has that been given to the rest of the board?
I do not know. I reached out to Joanne and she provided me a copy this morning.
Okay. I don't think I've seen it. Maybe Joanne would send it to all of us, because it's what's going to council on Thursday.
It's the PowerPoint. It's the PowerPoint presentation, Mary, that Glenn asked for, but we still had a few finishing touches even up to today that we were
Okay.
putting on it. So we've finished it. We can certainly send it to council. And this is the PowerPoint for the council presentation Thursday evening.
Okay.
Thank
Right,
you.
I believe the budget was calculated and we approved it earlier, so the budget's been approved by the board. It's just now the presentation, I think, that Scott's working on, isn't it?
Yes, that's
Scott?
correct, Linda.
Okay, so it's not changes in the budget.
No.
Well, there is a slight reduction from the original ask, but outside of that, there are no changes. And that is just based on the contract negotiations.
The question, Mr. Chair, do we have an idea of how we're going to be presenting or what the protocol will be for presenting the budget to council on Thursday?
So I believe that our legislative staff were in contact with Joe and Scott. Scott, could you apprise us on that? Because I know we had some questions about who could be in the chamber. I understand that there is the opportunity for members to be in the chamber as well as to come in on a virtual system. And I believe tonight, I'm getting ahead of it. I don't know if we're going to have the full online capability till next week. So I understand though, Scott, that you were appraised of how many people can come in.
Yes, Joe has asked with Nextdoor, and she can add to this, but my understanding is we are able to attend in person. We have the PowerPoint presentation ready. Fire and Parks and Rec are also presenting. We are first up. It probably would be similar to what we've done before, about a 20-minute presentation, because we've already done the dinner and learn, if you will. And it's live streamed, of course. So I've asked the senior officers just to keep our numbers down, not to attend, because we just want to have the minimum number of people there. Right now, it's myself and Joanne and potentially Deputy Duthie. And it would be up to the board if any of the board members wanted to attend or have a representative from the board. But we're thinking it's going to be a fairly straightforward presentation.
The board, members of the board wishing to attend, I think we can get one, maybe two in there, is my understanding. But at the same time, please be aware of your health and COVID.
Mr. Chair, with my...
I'm sorry.
Linda?
I was just asking Glenn if he was planning to attend.
Glenn?
I would just as soon not. I'm having my constant struggles right now, and I think I'd prefer not to attend if someone else could.
Very
And
good.
I can do so, yeah.
Linda, would you attend for us?
Yes, please, I can, certainly, yeah.
Very good.
What
So
time,
with one
Scott?
member there, I'll be there, of course, wearing my two hats. Mary and Barwan, do you have any thoughts about attending? I'm not pushing. I just want to
No.
make sure you have the opportunity to
I'd
attend if you
like
would like.
to listen to it, so if Anita can send how we can listen to it, that would
Very
be
good. It'll be live streamed off the Saanich website, but we'll get that link to you. Barwan?
I will not be attending in person, no.
Yes. Very
But if
good.
I have a link, I may listen to it.
Thank you very much, Barwan. Okay, so we're confirmed then. So Joe, would you like to let staff know that Linda will be attending for the board's representation?
Yes,
And that
absolutely. I will let Bala
members
know.
of the board, the rest of the board will be listening in on the live stream.
And just to clarify, what time is it that we need to gather?
Joe?
The meeting starts at 6 o'clock, Linda.
Okay.
We're first up, so if you get in, say 5 minutes to 6, there'll be a sort of an outside waiting area. Because you're first up, I imagine you're going to be brought into the council chamber. There is lots of spacing there. There should be a full council because we've asked all of council to attend. Just lately, 1 or 2 council members, two or three have been staying at home because of COVID restrictions. But I believe all council will be there along with our key staff that are going to talk to the item. So there will be some exposure because of numbers of people, but I think Linda being there will be just fine. Any further thoughts? Okay, thank you. Governance and strategic planning. Linda.
Nothing new to report at this time. Thank you.
That was strategic. Human resources, Lint Mary.
again the same thing of waiting for a new board member so we can have a committee.
Yes, I know. I did just hear from the people that are involved in this, and they say they expect to be able to tell us in within the mid part of March. They clearly haven't got to it, but I can share with you that I did send in the renewal performance appraisal for Barwan, and they're fully informed of our wish as a board collectively to have Barwan reappointed and stay with us. And I won't hear on that for a while because it has to go through the appropriate channels. But I just wanted you to know that that's where we're positioned. Thank you.
I would just ask Scott if there was anything new on human resources that you wanted to share with us that we should be aware of.
Yes, and it's with respect to a retirement at the senior officer level. Did you want that now or in camera?
Is it public? I mean,
That's a good question. I guess that's why I'm asking. It's not something that we publicly announce.
do the other people in the department know though, like if they?
Yes, certainly within the department, everybody knows.
Okay, well then I think it's okay.
Okay, so Inspector Todd Bryant has announced his notice to retire.
Oh, Todd, okay.
Effective June the 1st. He's not part of the meeting today. He's off this week.
Right.
Okay.
So he will be retiring June the 1st. He preferred to retire that time of year because of weather and so on, and that's consistent with his father, who is a retired staff sergeant with us, retired that time of year. And as you know, we recently had the inspector promotional competition, shortlisted to 3 candidates. So the senior officers just met at the end of last week, and we roundtabled, and we were unanimous in our selection of Inspector Stephanie Edwards as our first choice to replace Inspector Todd Bryant. And the board's probably aware that the last female inspector that occupied a position in the senior officer cadre was Inspector Sherry Dwyer, which was quite some time ago. We haven't had the application, so we're very pleased first that Stephanie applied. Excellent candidate, lots of service, lots of experience as a patrol staff sergeant. So we are collective as well in our decision to move her to the patrol division as the officer in charge of patrol, where she'll provide excellent leadership, mentorship, and great influence for the majority of our police women who are on patrol, as well as our police officers, our male officers. She's an emotionally intelligent leader, very servant style oriented. She's thrilled to go there, and in so doing, we will move Inspector Rob Warren to the Community Engagement Division, which will be his third portfolio. He was first in staff development, then patrol. Now he'll move to community engagement and replace Todd. Staff Sergeant Daryl Underwood, who is in community engagement working under Todd, will stay there. He's also in the inspector promotional shortlist, and he will do relief for Inspector Warren. So he'll get opportunities to be an acting inspector when Rob is on annual leave. And we will be moving the third shortlisted candidate, Sergeant Drew Robertson, to Stephanie's current position as the patrol admin sergeant, who will work under Stephanie and do acting relief for Stephanie when she's on leave. So both those officers who are on the promotional shortlist will get those opportunities, which are great developmental opportunities for them. So we're very pleased with where we've landed, and I think it's just great for the police department moving forward.
Hey, I would second that. Thank you, Scott, and to all the involved. I think that just sounds terrific, and I'm delighted to see Stephanie moving into that role. That's great.
Yes, Linda or Claire, would you like to speak to that, or Bowen?
It's just a continual example of what's been happening under our existing management team. I support it 100%.
Yeah, we looked at the resumes and she's an absolute worthy candidate.
Yeah, thank you, Bowen. Linda?
Yeah, it's a really good job and very good succession planning on Scott's part, and it's a great opportunity for the others and candidates. So well done.
Yeah. So Scott, given that this is quite a shift that we have a female inspector coming up, and it's been some time since then, is there some media aspect to this that could be utilized to show the great work the department's doing?
We could certainly consider that. We might consider it closer to the date to capture Todd's retirement and this promotion and the other downstream promotions.
Yes, I think that would be excellent. And also maybe consider, of course, the council bulletin at the right time. But I think this is a wonderful piece of news, and delighted for Stephanie and delighted for the department. Well done.
Thank you, Board.
Any other items on this, Mary?
No, not at the moment. Thank you.
Very good. So the next piece would be BCAPB. And Mary, did you want to take some lead on that? I guess we have the opportunity coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, a couple of things. Did anyone actually take part in the event last week? Was anybody on that? No.
Sorry,
Okay.
couldn't make it.
Right. We had a pretty good turnout, although I ended up being blocked out for some reason, so I wasn't able to get into it. But as you know, we're coming up to the virtual conference, which will start Friday afternoon. So I just wondered how many have signed up for that. Linda has?
I have.
Okay, because you have to be signed up to be let in, given all our security that I hope is going to work.
I better check, Mary, that I've got everything in place. So I'll check with Rachel today, but it's in my calendar, so I'm assuming I'm all signed up.
Okay,
make sure check on that.
Signed you up with Veronica. Yeah. Because you have to be signed up to be let in.
That's
Mr.
right.
Mayor,
it starts at 2 o'clock. I'm signed up. Yeah.
Yes, you are registered, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So Friday afternoon, as you know, is the with the Chiefs session, and Charlie Huber and Dale Manick are doing the first part, and then I'm doing the moderating the question period, and then there's a second hour, which is a panel of a number of different people involved in that as that second half. On Saturday is the AGM, but prior to the AGM, we have the minister, hopefully, is supposed to be joining us, as he's done at previous conferences. And then Christian Lapro will be doing a presentation, which should be very interesting. And then we'll be going into the AGM. And of course, at the AGM, there's the regular meeting things and the resolutions that will be looked at. So we have the resolutions in front of us. I think everybody has them.
Yes.
Everybody gets to vote individually on this. We don't vote as a group, but I think we should, as far as possible, have a consensus on whether we think they're a good idea. And we had forwarded them to Scott and asked Scott to give his or the department's reaction to them as well. So the first one was the one from the West Vancouver Police Board about the Motor Vehicle Act regulation to prohibit the installation of aftermarket exhaust systems. And so I'm going to turn to Scott, or you can ask someone else to comment. Any comments on that one?
No, not opposed to it. There hasn't really been much discussion that I'm aware of through the our chiefs group with respect to that. I know that can be problematic. We ourselves have had complaints over the years, largely aftermarket exhaust for motorcycles, although it does apply to regular vehicles as well. As it states, there are mechanisms in place under the current Motor Vehicle Act dealing with excessive noise for vehicles, but this would be very specific. So I'm not aware of any opposition from the chiefs from any conversations I've had. So I guess this would just be another mechanism to deal with these very, very loud aftermarket exhaust systems outside of the excessive noise section of the Motor Vehicle Act regulations.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions on that one?
I have a comment.
Yeah, I have
Mary.
a comment.
Oh, go ahead, Barwan, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's the only methodology to address this in the past has been with the noise bylaw, but that's more of a reactive issue. The noise is there, then you phone and complain, and then the bylaw is applied. This resolution is more proactive. It prevents people from creating that situation, which I like to be rather proactive than reactive in addressing this issue.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Fred?
Thank you. So Barwan, well done. We've had several residents talk to us about this. At 1 a.m., they hear this loud noise. By the time they get on the phone and make the call, the noise is gone, but meanwhile, they've been woken up. So I do think this is a good resolution. The other piece to be aware of is that within Oak Bay recently, they just brought forward a motion to ban gas-powered leaf blowers. And I think this is a growing trend. In Saanich, we are trying to move towards electrical devices. One of the problems has been the performance of them for leaf blowing, hedge trimming, etc. But it doesn't seem that battery power is something that's coming forward. And I think this type of move is consistent with public sentiment about unpleasant noises in community, including, gas-powered lawnmowers on an early Sunday morning. So I think it would get good support within the citizenry, except for those individuals that are car-centric, that like to put these things on.
Okay, good. So it sounds like folks are okay with that one. The second one is a pretty familiar one about the JIBC asking for immediate additional funding to be provided. I mean, this discussion's been going on for a long time. It's not new. The ministry is certainly aware of it, and they do have mechanisms by which they're meeting with advanced education and looking at the funding. I know through my involvement with the Recruit Training Committee, but I don't think this would be of any harm, and obviously just would be one more push to move this issue ahead. So I would certainly support it. And any comments from others on it? And Scott, I would assume the chiefs would be supporting this?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. The third one is to increase the fine and include an impoundment provision for motorists who fail to stop for police when directed to do so. I'd always thought there was, but I guess they'll increase the fine. Yeah, it's only $138. Yeah, not very much compared to a lot of other fines that are around these days. Again, Scott, do you know what the view of the chiefs would be on this?
No, I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward. Depending on the situation, obviously, if a vehicle was stolen or something, it can be impounded anyway, or if there was dangerous driving or other violations, I guess this is just kind of a catch-all and just giving another tool, if you will, for police officers to impound vehicles. Just like after, I think, the third offense for distracted driving, police can impound vehicles. So again, I'm not aware of any opposition to this. It's just further enhancement to powers that exist with police in the province.
And it certainly shows that we're a lot more lenient than most other provinces in this respect, both on fines and
yeah, as you know, it's very restrictive in terms of engaging in pursuits because of provincial policing standards. So The majority of the time, police do not pursue, and that vehicle's gone. It might get stopped at another time, and it just, I guess, gives police a little more authority, if you will, if there's nothing else that's in place to give them the power to seize that vehicle and impound it. So I can only see positives in this case.
Any questions from board members? Look okay to you?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay. And then the fourth one, and this is something that's been in the news quite a bit lately about to include catalytic converters as a regulated item. I read something the other day that what's in them is as precious as gold. Um,
More than gold.
yeah. So to make it a regulated item, and again, Scott, any thoughts from the department on that?
Yeah, we are very familiar with this as an item that gets stolen, albeit, and maybe Gary can speak to it, or Rob, or one of the other inspectors. I'm not aware of any kind of prolific cases that ring a bell locally, but it is an item of choice for theft from automobiles. And I guess this is just making, another means by which police can probably track these things better and recover them in that, because they are of value and it results in a lot of claims to ICBC. So I can't see any negatives here.
Gary, any thoughts?
No, I agree with the chief's comment that I don't see any downside, but I would point out that it hasn't been an issue that we've particularly seen or noted in Saanich.
Right, yes. I think this is coming from Vancouver, where I gather it is much more of an issue in the Lower Mainland, perhaps. So any other questions or comments from board colleagues?
I did have some residents call in about this and were not in favour, which was interesting to me. In my 6 years now on council, we've never had an issue around the firearm aspect. So,
This was the catalytic converter still.
oh, I apologise. Did I jump ahead there?
Yeah, the next one.
I
Yeah.
apologise. Catalytic. Our down tools. I have nothing to say on catalytic converters.
Okay. Yeah. Then the final one is about firearms, to restrict the places in which imitation firearms can be possessed and prohibit their possession in schools, community centers, blah, 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 et cetera, as well. So asking for amendments to prohibit possession of imitation firearms in specific places. So again, perhaps Scott, again, any comments from the department on that?
No, but it's coming from the Vancouver Police Board, obviously there's reasons for it. They're usually quite well informed as a result of the issues they deal with. I know that, and I'm sure the board is aware that federally there's a move through the Prime Minister to be banning different types of, what are they called?
Imitation or not?
No, the real ones.
Gary, do you recall, isn't it like the paintball guns and that sort of?
Airsoft, I think, is the term you're looking for, Chief.
Airsoft. Thank you, Rob. Sorry. Yeah, airsoft firearms. So this is probably to some degree in line with that, in that it's often that imitation or firearms are mistaken for real firearms, which result in a certain response from police. They're often used for robberies and that. So I guess it's from a public safety perspective. The caution always is when you talk about imitation firearms in schools and that, where the cutoff is in terms of young children having toy guns and that look like kind of an imitation firearm. So I can't really speak too much more to it than that, but I think the spirit and intent is well founded.
And Fred, you said you had some comments.
Yes, sorry. And the reason I jumped ahead there is I just sent a note to board and staff around old business that's coming. So I apologise for that. I lost my train of thought. Yes, I've had a couple of residents saying this is not an appropriate thing to start banning firearms at the municipal level. It's a federal thing. I think Vancouver is in a different position because it has its own charter. So I'm not sure where this would land legislatively within Saanich as a municipality. Scott, do you have any thoughts on that? Do we have any particular powers in the municipality to take this on?
Well, this is talking specifically about both the federal legislation and the provincial legislation to amend those two pieces of legislation.
Yes.
So, it's not municipality to municipality. This is very specific for the statutory authority.
So within that, Scott, understood, would you feel that this is supportable then for us to go through the process and support for Saanich's needs? Or would it just be a case of supporting it because we want to be able to show support for the Vancouver Police Board?
I think it would be helpful if I probably reached out to Mayor Adam or Chief Adam Palmer and just got a little bit more insight as to how this has come up and their rationale, and I could get back to the board probably within the next day or two.
Okay. That would,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you check too, because I understood that with the Vancouver Charter, they have certain powers that are beyond ours, which prompted my question there.
they're not suggesting they could do it themselves. They're saying they have to ask for both the BC government and the federal government to amend legislation.
So I guess we can
have the ability to do it themselves.
So then I guess from that, Mary, we would take that they need this support because they cannot do it themselves, although their charter is quite powerful in other ways. So thank you, Scott. If you could, when would you get back to us on that, Scott? Maybe an email before Saturday?
Definitely before Friday would be my goal.
Okay,
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. And then again, people can, I mean, it's going to be all virtual, don't forget, and hopefully the system's going to work for people to vote on these resolutions. But yeah, that's the last one, isn't it?
I would expect as well, Mary, that there'd be some presentation and dialogue over this during the course of the meeting.
Yes, well, each board sponsored a resolution gets an opportunity to speak to it. And then there is a chance for questions or comments. Fairly short, fairly truncated, but there's a bit of
Mary and Scott, on this piece, within the firearms piece, it just would prohibit possession of imitation firearms in specific places. It seems to leave to the federal government and provincial government what those places might be, or is there subsidiaries that say not at schools, not in shopping malls, etc.?
Yeah, they list what they think it should be: the schools, community center, public venues, etc., etc., etc. I don't know, just whether or not either the province or the federal government have jurisdiction to be able to actually do that. That's perhaps something you can ask Adam if he's aware of that.
I will.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's the resolutions, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody on the weekend for that. And then get to the next one. The Special Committee on Reforming the Police Act.
Yes, yeah.
So the BC Association of Police Boards is planning a submission, and I think, as everybody knows, the deadline is the end of April for written submissions. The committee has been hearing from various people all the way along, and I guess they have to report by October. So there's not a huge opportunity for in-person, probably, presentations, but at least there can be written presentations. So I think one of the questions was whether we wanted to do one.
Yes. So, Mary, I'll take a stab at this. I just sent the board a follow-on piece from our last board meeting where we talked about an opportunities to ask in the review for a look at the 911 call-in program related to mental health emergencies. And we identified as a group, I believe, that the 911 system that we have is overloaded. It's got fire, police, ambulance. It's under ECOM, but across the province there are different systems. There's even different numbers. Also, there's the 811 system, which is a health navigatory tool. This is described in the report I just sent to you. The idea would be to write to the province to ask them to look at changing the approach to emergency calls and treat it more as a health issue by increasing funding through the Ministry of Health for resources along with our IMCRT, Integrated Mobile Crisis Teams, and our ACT teams, or their similar bodies across the province. Council supported that unanimously yesterday, and the item 2 on there was and that this report be forwarded to the Special Committee on Reforming the Police Act. I did just send this to you. Let me read it. Direct the Mayor to write to the Premier of British Columbia, the Attorney General, and the Minister responsible for housing, the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, and the Minister of Health, asking for appropriate funding and commitments to new policy, budget and legal frameworks that support the creation of a separate and distinct system to address the volume and variety of mental health calls requiring rapid response without further burdening the current 911 system, and which will be resourced and administered through the Provincial Ministry of Health. And 2, this report be forwarded to the Special Committee on Reforming the Police Act. Now, in the body of the report itself, it does talk about, the options to use separately the 811 system or the 911 system. But aside from identifying the problem, we didn't necessarily want to advise on a solution. So we did talk about this at the last meeting. And if there's the will of the board, I would be interested in taking this forward as part of our submissions. Separately, first of all, let's deal with that. What's the position of the board? And
So
input from Scott.
can I just ask, you're suggesting this would be a submission from Saanich or from the Saanich Police Board?
Well, what we could do, this is the question I have, Mary. To be able to submit from the police board, would it be an endorsement from the board of that resolution or our own resolution? I'm not sure which works better. Could you advise me on that?
I would think it should be our own resolution because we might have other issues that we want to include.
Correct.
Beyond
Well, this would be one of a series of, this is just one item. This isn't the whole submission.
that.
If there are other items, that's a good thing, but this could be one of them.
Right.
Is it an appropriate one for us? So I'd like to hear from the board and also from the department, Scott.
Yeah. A good article in the Saanich News today about it.
Thank you.
Yes, very good article. Yeah.
Thank you.
And it was
Yeah.
based on, of course, what Winnipeg has done. That was
Yes.
the beginning of all this, was the review that Winnipeg had done and what.
Yes, I'd sent all that material on to Saanich News a couple of weeks ago as I was preparing for this. And this work we see today actually stems from what we started in September with the opioid crisis and addictions, etc. And some of the language in this resolution is taken straight out of our earlier work. So the way I explained it to some people is that this is the fourth part of a series of work we're doing in the mental health, homeless, complex care area. And oddly, I hadn't seen the Saanich News article just yet. I was waiting for tomorrow's paper copy, but I should look online.
Yeah, online.
But Devon has been very good in terms of doing that work on the paper.
So Scott, do you or does the department have a view or a comment on this?
I guess, Mary, I'm just curious procedurally because I know the BC Chiefs and we have representatives who will be presenting to the committee based on all our input. BCAPB, are they not doing something similar versus individual boards doing something?
But individual boards can do it as well.
Oh, I see.
BCAPB will be a conglomerate of what we get back from all of the, but something like this. So individual boards we probably won't be asked to appear, but we can do a written submission.
I see, right.
Yeah.
And how does this, what the mayor has said, align with what BCAPB has put together?
They haven't put it together yet.
Oh, I see. Okay.
There's a subcommittee, which unfortunately, I don't know, Leah Zilli's mother passed away a couple of weeks ago. So that's she's in Calgary.
Okay.
So the subcommittee hasn't met as yet.
Right.
So Scott, that's a very good question. I was coming on that. So Mary, could this be forwarded to the provincial group for their consideration?
Yeah, I'm on that subcommittee, so certainly I would include it when we have our discussions.
Yeah. So is that a better approach than taking it on individually?
No, I think we should also submit it ourselves too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
there might be a few other issues. So I guess one of the things would be to suggest we have a little subcommittee to draft a proposed submission and bring it back to the April board meeting. That would still be in time.
Do you want to make that motion?
Yeah. Did you get that, Anita?
Yeah, and a second on that, please. Would you like to second that, someone? Creation of a focus subcommittee to look at items to go forward to the Special Committee of Reform in the Police Act.
I will second it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Linda. Moved and seconded. Glenn, who would like, Barwin, would you like to speak to it? And Linda?
I'd be happy to work with somebody on it as the governance committee. We could do a start on that. So I'm happy to coordinate that.
And I certainly will. I'm kind of involved.
Very good.
BCA.
Others?
I think
Barwin,
that's
Glenn?
probably the place to work as part as the board as a whole and see what we can come up with.
Yeah, I'll support that. If there's anything I can contribute to, we can do that.
Very good. So we'll leave it to Mary and Linda to convene. You can invite board members as you choose. I'll be happy to be a part of that.
Mhm.
Scott, do you have any suggestions of items the board might consider?
Yeah, I would probably want to review the material that the BC Chiefs have put together because I think there's going to be consistent themes. I guess I'm always conscious too of the need to, rightly or wrongly, not influence the board side of it as the kind of the governance and the oversight piece. So there is some separation from what the police chiefs are doing, but maybe that's not necessary. Mary might be able to speak better to that.
Yeah, if we're broad policy issues, I think, under the Police Act, it can fall to the board to also have comments about them. So I don't know what the chiefs are planning. There may be some of the things they're planning to talk about that wouldn't be appropriate. And I don't think our submission need be that long. Like, we're not going to cover all the issues that probably BCA
No.
would cover. I think we should have 3 at the most. And obviously,
Good.
you've mentioned is probably the primary one.
Yeah, I think 3, yeah, we should limit it, focus it to 1, 2, or 3, and go forward in that way. I really respect what Scott said there in terms of governance and separations from the chiefs and the boards. At the same time, I think his input, even in helping to understand this one, was invaluable. I can share with you the BC Urban Mayors Caucus, which is the 13 mayors, and you've seen some of the blueprint, is preparing a submission that will be going in with the UBCM submission, and it will be a focusedly tight piece, which may have only 2 issues in it.
Right. Yeah. And certainly from what I've seen so far in the presentations that the committee has heard, the whole issue around mental health and the police role is a big issue. Now, some folks are coming from it from a different perspective, like the Human Rights Commissioner is a very sort of negative perspective, but others are from a more positive, what can we do to really make the system work better?
Yes. Yes. I've been just a heads up before we go off of this one. I've been invited onto CFAX tomorrow with Adam Sterling to talk exactly about this item that came from Saanich Council. I will mention to him that the police board is also looking at its submissions, but without giving any indication of what they may be, other than that this is under consideration.
One thing, Scott, we may want to follow up with you or whomever you would say would be appropriate is just to get some stats and some numbers from Saanich in terms of mental health calls and trends.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
5,000 calls in Vancouver
in
1 year. Okay, so anything else on this one?
I don't think so. No, looks good.
Okay. So we've done, the next one is the CAPG.
Yeah, there's the webinar coming up on March the 11th. And also on their website, they actually have a list of all the webinars for the rest of the year with the dates. So I would really, I think that's just a good thing to look at, gives you a bit of a heads up of what's coming up. But I think there's really some very good ones. They are just going to be going with a virtual conference in August, and further details will be available hopefully by April. they're now looking at excited an in-person conference in August 2022 in Saskatoon. So,
Lovely. So Mary, on the webinars and for the board, I quite enjoyed our recent social gathering, which was there for the social reasons. I'm wondering, as we look at future dates for that, if we could tag them to be just after the webinar. So those who were on the webinar, maybe that could be one of the things we talk about, what the listen and learn aspects were, or is that a step too far?
it depends. They're in the morning from 9 till 10.
Yeah, so we could do it like some evening following that in the next week or something.
Yeah.
For half an hour. It's almost like oddly enough, I thought of this the other day because my wife is part of a book club and they get together once a month and they talk about the latest book they read. And I just wondered if that would be a way of adding some value to these webinars.
Right.
Just leave that with people to think about maybe.
I think, Mr. Mayor, that would be a good opportunity for the board to actually get together and discuss things offline once a month anyway. So whether it's after the CAPG or just once a month, I think it's valuable for us to get together and do that meeting that we did, similar to what we did last time.
Very good. And I think I agree with you on that. And some of the comments we've heard from other members is that particularly once we get the 2 new board members on board, which should be imminent, we think, that will take on extra value as well.
Just, we have to be careful. We're not talking about board business, though.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
very
So
careful about that.
let's be diligent about that and make sure that that's the case. That would be interesting because if we talk about the webinar information about board, the topics of the webinar, we'd have to make sure that we didn't then apply it to our own governance activities.
But you're allowed to have meetings and discussions with the board out of formal meetings. You're just not allowed to make any decisions and take any action going forward. So it's like a
Yes.
board workshop, and that you are entitled as the board to meet and discuss issues and have a conversation of items. So that's not prohibited. Simply that you can't make a decision and have any motions formal sessions. But workshops are certainly allowed, and informal meetings are certainly not a problem from a governance
Very
perspective.
good. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay then. So shall we move on? Go ahead,
Actually,
Mary.
Fred, then I should just bring up one other item here, and we received the letter from Police Services about the board training.
Yes.
Different options, and I had talked to David Pilling more recently, and they're interested in knowing whether or not we want to take the opportunity of the 1-hour training session. I think it would have to be after our new 2 board members come on board, but what they would want to know is what issues we would like to have covered, because it really will be tailored to individual boards and what their priorities and issues are that they would like to know about. So I would just ask, and I guess the governance committee too, to think about that. And again, perhaps in April, because it's not going to happen, till some few months, to think about that.
Right. I'll put that on the list of things that we'll look at from the governance committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. That's Mary and Linda. That's an excellent point. And maybe once the new board members are on in harness with us, then we could confer with them as well on what their training needs may be.
This is one of the things that could be discussed in the evening meetings as well, collectively, as what we perceive as training needs.
Yes, yes. Okay, Mary, are you satisfied, and Linda on that one?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so was there any old business? Hearing none, let's go to adjournment, please, and date of the next meeting, which is April the 6th, Tuesday, April the 6th. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Glenn. Second. Show by hand. Can someone raise their hand on the second?
I did.
Oh, sorry, the video isn't responding. So moved by Glenn, and was that Mary? I believe so.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, moved and seconded. Those in favor, thank you. Are those opposed? Make a noise. Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, staffs. Can we now close the open and go to our in-camera to turn systems off?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to turn the live streaming off.